Welcome to Peace News Now. We are live this Sunday, August 10th, 2014. And there's a lot of peaceful resistance in the news around the world today. Got a button to share with you. You can watch the show live at derekj.me. We've got video, chat room, an audio feed, and all the notes of the news stories we're going to be talking about today. Plus, we take your calls. You can dial in via Skype, send us a contact request at PeaceNewsNow, that's all one word, and then that will be accepted. You can dial in, share your thoughts on what's going on in the world of peaceful resistance. You can also call in our Hi-Fi Civ Dis line. That's 443-424-8347. This spells out Hi-Fi Civ Dis. So, this week, headline from NewYorkTimes.com, Obama, with reluctance, returns to action in Iraq. So the New York Times, an American apologist newspaper, published online, of course, and the headline, even in its titling, is apologetic for Obama's warmongering. Obama, with reluctance, comma, returns to action in Iraq. Action, like Action Comics, like Superman. Like heroes return to action. But that's not what's happening in Iraq. Anyone who's been following this war for the past 10 years knows better than that. And for more than the last 10 years, it's been a graveyard of empires. Well, that's Afghanistan, right? So I'm mixing my analogies here. But Iraq is becoming the graveyard of the American empire. So what's the latest? Well, I'm not going to read from the New York Times or any of the apologist newspapers about what's happening. I think we can all digest it as Big Brother got on his Big Brother screen, said, we've always been at war with East Asia, and we're going to continue airstrikes in northern Iraq. We being the U.S. military and the Pentagon, of course, not you and me. So he and his buddies are going to continue throwing missiles and bullets at the people in Iraq, that part of the earth. And he calls this military action, not war. It's clearly, for people who have their heads screwed on straight, this is an act of war. Military airstrikes, blowing up bombs in houses. This is a war that's only going in one direction. It's worth mentioning on a show like Peace News Now, we like to talk about stories of peaceful resistance, but in the broader context, this is what's happening in the world. There is ongoing world war, and it's prudent to take a look out the window every once in a while and examine it. But let's talk about what's going right in the world, shall we? Wikipedia picks up $140,000 in Bitcoin donations in just 1 week. So people have been knocking down the door of Wikipedia and the Wikimedia Foundation saying, please, you've been begging us for money with your ridiculous banner at the top of the screen, always begging, saying, Wikipedia needs your help, send me money. We would like to be doing that, and you don't accept Bitcoin. So how many years? I guess it took about 2-3 years before they finally decided to cave to the Bitcoin donors who have been trying to give them money. Now they said, okay, we'll accept it. And in the first week, they get $140,000. That's not chump change. Looks like people have been wanting to give for a while. In late July, this article from TechCrunch.com, Wikipedia announced that it would accept donations in Bitcoin. In the first week of accepting Bitcoin, Wikipedia racked up $140,000 in new funds. According to Coinbase, the service that powers its cryptocurrency influx. So that's interesting. They chose to go with Coinbase, a third-party processor, for their Bitcoin instead of taking and accepting the Bitcoin directly. I'm kind of scratching my head on that one. Why wouldn't you just accept Bitcoin directly? Your Wikipedia. Remember when, who was it? Was it Wikipedia or, oh, it was WikiLeaks who had their sources of funding shut down way back when the Edward Snowden revelations were happening, and even before that, right, with the Bradley Manning revelations. So Wikipedia, or not, excuse me, WikiLeaks has a history of having their donations cut off. Why would anyone go through a third-party processor when the government can just pull the lever on that and say, no more? Wouldn't it make sense to set up their infrastructure to accept Bitcoin directly? I don't know. And maybe it's for accounting purposes. Maybe they just want to get their feet wet. I can't blame them. They're at least going for it, where other companies aren't. So good for you, Wikipedia. CoinDesk, a publication that tracks Bitcoin and other alternative digital currencies, heralds the news as suggesting the staying power of the digital currency donations owing to the combination of tax benefits and transaction cost savings. Wow, what a complicated way to say it saves you money and it's easy to send across the internet. I'm slightly more skeptical, writes this author at TechCrunch, but it is without doubt that the donations are welcome at Wikipedia. As TechCrunch previously reported, the Wikimedia Foundation, parent to Wikipedia, doesn't intend to hold Bitcoin, and that's stupid. Why? I mean, come on, I don't know. I guess it's speculative, right? They want to make sure that they have their money. But why convert good currency, good digital freedom currency like Bitcoin, into trash like Federal Reserve notes? And then worse, digital Federal Reserve notes. Ew. TechCrunch also noted that the foundation raised $18.7 million last year, making this $140,000 less than 1% of its prior haul. But 1% in a week could add up to a tidy figure, provided Bitcoin donations continue. Yeah, I mean, think about how small the Bitcoin community is compared to the rest of the whole global economy. Everything else. Well, everyone's welcome to donate to Wikipedia. So what's the Bitcoin community represent? About less than 0.5% of the global economy? So they should be like less than 0.5% of the Wikipedia donations, you would think. But they're not. Doesn't look like they're going to be. Coinbase doesn't charge nonprofit transaction fees. That's nice. So at least they're saving them some money during the processing. But still, why convert great Bitcoins into Federal Reserve notes? They're so limited. They're so taxable. They fund wars. They keep the empire afloat. The idea that it's legitimate. All these presidents on paper money that we pass around in exchange for value like labor. Give our blood and our sweat in exchange for this crap? No. Well, one day Wikipedia will just accept Bitcoin. One day that will be the case. They will just say, of course, we've been accepting Bitcoin for 10 years now, and now we're just going to hold on to the Bitcoin. We're not going to convert it into Federal Reserve notes. Can you imagine the shockwaves that's going to send? I mean, remember when some of the countries in the Middle East, I think it was Iran, who said, we're not going to exchange oil for Federal Reserve notes. We're going to deal in pounds or yuan or whatever the other currency they decided to choose was. But not Federal Reserve notes. You know, the dollar world reserve currency status is what supposedly gives the dollar so much of its value. But as people start to devalue it, as people start to not value it as much as other currencies, it loses its usefulness. It loses its appeal. And as people start to equate these war dollars with the endless wars overseas, I think we'll see people stop using them in favor of currencies like Bitcoin in droves. Call in 443-424-8347 or Skype us. This is Peace News Now.
Thanks to Bitcoin, LRN.FM is able to provide our free-to-air satellite channel across North and Central America. You can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via satellite for no monthly cost. Learn more about our satellite channel at sat.lrn.fm. And if you'd like to help us continue to expand, you can send us Bitcoins via the address you'll find under the Bitcoin graphic in the right column of LRN.FM. To learn more about Bitcoin, visit weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phone, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.lrn.fm. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit the Liberty Radio Network when you shop at Amazon via shop.lrn.fm.
Liberty activists around the country are starting to realize politics alone won't set us free. So what will? At Liberty on the Rocks, we believe the answer starts with living your principles, spreading ideas, and connecting with those around you. By starting a Liberty on the Rocks network, you can make a difference by uniting libertarian thinkers. Find out how much fun it is to build your local network from the ground up. Visit libertyontherocks.org today to get started.
Did you know that you can listen to LRN.FM 24/7 via our free-to-air satellite channel? From Mexico to Canada, our signal covers nearly all of North America. All you need is a view of the southern sky, an affordable receiver, and a dish as small as 30 inches. There are no monthly fees. Learn more at sat.lrn.fm. Plus, if you're a broadcaster or want to be one, this is a good delivery method for our content. See our coverage map and get details at sat.lrn.fm. That's sat.lrn.fm.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippie! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you got to keep you and your gat intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Badavi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
You can watch the LRN Studio Cam and chat with other listeners anytime at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
Bombs over Iraq continue thanks to Barack. But the good news is alternative currencies march on with taking power away from the old world system, old world control, and bringing power back into the hands of individuals. TechCrunch.com reporting that Wikipedia received $140,000 in Bitcoin donations in 1 week after accepting the new currency. So that's very exciting. I like to see the world moving in a new direction. Hey, speaking of the world moving in a new direction, Forbes.com reported this week that a record number of Americans renounced their citizenship this year, hitting a new record. Quote, "It may seem like a drop in the bucket, especially when droves want to immigrate to America. Still, the newly published names of individuals who renounced their U.S. citizenship or terminated long-term U.S. residency is up, with 576 for the quarter and 1,577 so far this year. The growing trend is a sad one, with record numbers of Americans renouncing their U.S. citizenship." Oh, boo-hoo. Sad one? Why is that sad? Good for them. The number should be double, triple, quadruple what it is. For all the immigrant arrivals, the trickle in the other direction is becoming more pronounced. The tally was 3,000 for all of 2013. A 221% increase over the 932 who left in 2012. Wow. The Treasury Department is required to publish a quarterly list, a kind of public outing, putting Americans on notice of who relinquished their rights. What an odd way to put that. Who relinquished their rights? Do rights come from governments or are they inherent? Does one relinquish one's rights when renouncing citizenship? I would argue not, because rights are inherent. They don't come from governments. They aren't bestowed upon us through words on paper or men with guns. Expatriations, where people don't file exit tax forms with the IRS, are not counted. So could it be that these consular expatriations, where people don't file exit tax forms with the IRS, outnumber those that do? I mean, if you're going to leave the U.S. and say, "I'm no longer a citizen, screw you," and you decide not to pay the 50% exit tax, where you pay the government 50% of everything you own before you can leave, those aren't counted towards the number. So it could be much higher. Indeed, the Treasury Department's published list states explicitly this is just about whom the Secretary of Treasury has data. It means these numbers are understated, some say considerably. The presence or absence of tax motivation used to impact how one would be taxed on departing the U.S. Today, it's no longer relevant why someone expatriates. The law was changed in 2004, so tax consequences do not hinge on why one leaves. But that could change after Facebook co-founder Eduardo Severin departed permanently for Singapore with his IPO riches. There was an angry backlash. Mr. Severin's flyaway prompted such outrage that Senators Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey introduced a bill to double the exit tax to 30% for anyone leaving the U.S. for tax reasons. You don't like taxes? Tough. Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey are going to make sure you pay 30% if that's your reason. You don't like taxes? We're going to double them. That's the attitude politicians have towards you. If you don't want to fund their wars, if you don't want to fund the war on drugs, the war on brown people. Most expatriations are motivated primarily by factors such as family and convenience. Complex or costly taxes can sway a decision but are often only one factor. Many now find America's global income tax compliance and disclosure laws inconvenient or even oppressive. We have thoughts from the LRN studio.
Hello, Derek.
Hey, it sounds like this is Daryl W. Perry of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Welcome, you're on Peace News Now.
Yeah, so I was listening to you while I'm uploading my archives for Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, and I heard you say something that sort of struck me as odd. You know, people always tell me if you don't like taxes, you should just leave. But you said that if people leave the U.S. and renounce their citizenship because they don't like taxes, then they get taxed double?
Yes, that's correct. Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey introduced a bill to double the exit tax to 30% for anyone leaving the U.S. for tax reasons. Now, it's not clear to me whether or not that bill passed, but the sentiment is still there.
Yeah, it just seems kind of odd to me that, you know, if you don't like it, then leave. But if you leave, we're going to tax you even more. So that sort of disincentivizes people from actually taking the advice to leave, does it not?
Yeah, it's like saying, if you don't like a punch in the nose, well, then you're going to get a punch in the nose and a punch in the mouth.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. All right, just wanted to share that. Thanks,
Hey,
Derek.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate your thoughts. You can Skype in and sound almost as wonderful as Daryl if you dial in at Peace News Now. You can also call in our Hi-Fi Civ Dis line. That's 443-424-8347. Continuing with the article at Forbes.com. For U.S. persons living and working in foreign countries, it's almost a given that they must report and pay tax where they live. But they also must continue to file taxes in the U.S. based on their worldwide income. Claiming foreign tax credit on one's U.S. returns generally does not eliminate all double taxes. U.S. taxes are complex, and enforcement fears are palpable. Moreover, the annual foreign bank account reports, known as FBAR, carry civil and even criminal penalties. Civil penalties alone can quickly consume the balance of an account. And then there's FATCA, which requires filing of an annual Form 8938 once foreign assets reach a threshold. Is your head spinning yet? How much time do you think it would take a reasonable person to read all tax codes? The U.S. federal government admits it doesn't even know how many there are. Good luck. Peace News Now.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Shiny badges on your jacket, shiny badges.
This is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and I just want to personally apologize for airing a jingle week after week, month after month, that turned out to be such an infectious brainworm. So to make it up to you, I'm offering a free gift. The next time you make a purchase at ShinyBadges.com, write worms in the transaction comments, and I'll send you something weird.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's posts pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that tenth of a calorie it takes to click on something. facebook.freetalklive.com.
The easiest thing in the world for a reader to do is to stop reading, according to the late, great Barney Kilgore, who became managing editor of the Wall Street Journal in 1941 and grew the paper's circulation from 33,000 to 1 million by the 60s. And he'd be pleased to know that his paper is one of the few that people now pay to read online. Someone else pre-internet who realized that attention is fragile? Motown Records founder Berry Gordy. In the early 60s, when his label dominated the charts, he'd bring a dozen real people into the Hitsville, USA studios and audition songs. And he'd ask, if you were down to your last dollar, would you spend it on this record or would you buy a sandwich? Today, attention span seems like an oxymoron. For tips on cutting through the clutter, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air, and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Peace News Now. Skype us or dial in 443-424-8347. We're talking about Americans renouncing citizenship. Americans. Can you guess? Probably the number one reason is tax avoidance. Because people, not only do they not support the wars of aggression against peaceful people in the form of prohibition or the endless wars overseas for foreign oil or protectionism of like distribution pipelines, things like natural gas and natural resources. It's the same old story. If you took U.S. history when you were a kid and you heard all the stories about the evil days of, but that was the past when the U.S. empire just had wars of aggression to expand their empire. That was just in the past. They're not like that today. See, old buddy Barack, he's only going into Iraq again. Well, because you'll believe the doublespeak, right? You're going to buy it this time. Bought it last time. Buy it again. Iraq War 2.0. He approved airstrikes. And I find this interesting, speaking of doublespeak and the whole 1984 Orwellian characterization of this story. His actual quote was this: American combat troops will not be returning to fight in Iraq because there is no American military solution to the crisis in Iraq. Barack Obama, those are his words. American combat troops will not be returning to fight in Iraq because there is no American military solution to the crisis in Iraq. So then what does he call it when there are military airstrikes? Is that not the military solution? All right. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that's doublespeak. No military solution, but airstrikes are the solution. What? I mean, that's doublespeak to make your head spin. That's complete opposite talk. So let's get back into why Americans are leaving besides their opposition to endless war. Taxes. The government's strangling the productive. And they're saying, I could do better elsewhere, thank you. But to leave America, you generally must prove 5 years of U.S. tax compliance. If you have a net worth greater than $2 million for average annual net income tax for the previous 5 years of $155,000 or more, that's tax, not income, you pay an exit tax. It's a capital gain tax, as if you sold your property when you left. At least there's an exemption of $680,000. Long-term residents giving up a green card can be required to pay the tax too. So you have to prove that you have given all of your productivity that's been asked of you to the federal government for the last 5 years to show you've been a good little slave. You're not just running away to avoid paying the slave master. You're not just looking to live free. You're going to another farm. You're going to go work for another master. You haven't rebelled. You know what this means, though? That the act, the innocent, benevolent act of withholding money, monetary support for the empire's wars is a serious act of sedition in the minds of these regulators, these slave drivers, right? Pay us. You owe them. How do you owe them? When did that obligation come about? Who are these people who you're even paying money to? Just this nebulous blob called the state. Well, I don't believe it. And I won't support it. I hope you won't either. Have the courage. Know that there are millions of Americans who have the courage to say, I won't support wars of aggression. I won't support it with my word or my deed. And I won't give you the money to fund it. It takes a personal responsibility for your role in the war on drugs. Are you funding the war on drugs with your taxes? Take steps in your life to reduce that support. The reality is, though many of us with our words reject wars and prohibitions, we haven't taken the steps necessary to sever all ties with that support. You know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You know this in the back of your mind. That prohibitions and the wars against peaceful people will end when you stop supporting them. With word and deed. You can get support for that here in Keene in the Shire from whence this show is broadcast. Check out freekeene.com or the freestateproject.org for more info. Because if you're a doer who loves peace and wants peace, freedom, and total human liberation in your lifetime, that is the goal of the people who have moved to here, this geographic location called New Hampshire or the Shire. The Free State Project is the idea that 20,000 liberty-loving people will gather in the same geographic location to get active for liberty. With the dream that if we work together, we as individuals can restrict the power of government and limit its authority to just the realms of protecting life, liberty, and property at its maximum. There could certainly be less government in my utopia. But as we transition to a voluntary society, it's going to take courage to spread these ideas to people who are not familiar with them. And one group that's doing so in Dayton took an advantage of a tragic shooting in a Walmart to turn the message to one of peace and voluntarism. I'll share a clip with you from Dayton Daily News, who reports about some counter-protesters to a Walmart shooting. And you'll see how this helps us transition to a voluntary society. Take a listen. The sign says, "Toy guns don't kill people, cops do." And then there's a man holding a peace flag that says, "Badges don't grant extra rights," from coplock.org. And then they have a sign displaying real gun, toy gun. So these peaceful protesters made the newspaper. Here's the article from DaytonDailyNews.com. Beaver Creek. A small group of people held signs in protest Saturday to speak out against the Beaver Creek officer-involved shooting at Walmart that happened earlier this week. State authorities are assisting in the investigation into the August 5th incident in which a 22-year-old John Crawford III of Fairfield was fatally shot. Police say he was shot after he did not drop an air rifle when instructed to do so by Beaver Creek police officers Sean Williams and Sergeant Dave Darko. So a 22-year-old boy is dead for holding an air rifle in a Walmart. We'll return to this story on Peace News Now. Call in, share your thoughts, 443-424-8347. We'll be right back.
Stop harming your body with coffee from grocery stores or most chains. Start making a difference, one cup at a time. We've partnered with Camano Island Coffee Roasters to offer you a free pound of BuzzBox coffee. It's organic, so no harmful pesticides or toxins. Shade-grown, meaning less acidity and no heartburn. Try the best of the best for free. Just cover shipping. 10% of future purchases go toward helping us give the gift of human freedom around the globe with at least 100 microloans via World Vision. Go to coffee.freetalklive.com.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, a fitness writer, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Like many of the million people who are living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every single day. And sometimes my nerves are so raw that if you brushed up against me in an elevator, I'd scream. I can't sleep at night from the pain, and sometimes the spasms in my legs are so intense they will wake me up throughout the night. I've tried the strongest prescription medications available, and I'm going to tell you, they do not work. In fact, they leave me in a stupor, and most of the time, it's impossible to even live your life. Now, I've tried medical marijuana, and I'm going to tell you something, it works. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
Now that you've found the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM, you may want to help expose others to our great programs. To assist you in doing so, you'll find resources at promote.lrn.fm, including details on how to get a free bumper sticker, quarter-page flyers you can print out and distribute, banners for your website, as well as files that will allow you to make your own custom banners and graphics. Visit promote.lrn.fm and help bring new listeners to the Liberty Radio Network. That's promote.lrn.fm.
Ross Ulbricht was arrested by the FBI in 2013 and charged with victimless crimes in relation to allegedly operating the Bitcoin-based Silk Road black market. He has been in a prison cell awaiting trial ever since. If he did it, he's a hero for making the black market a safer place. If he did not, he's a man wrongfully accused. Either way, if you love freedom and want to end the war on drugs, Ross and his family need your support. You can learn more and help fund his defense at freeross.org. That's freeross.org.
Instead of just listening, you can also watch. See the Liberty Radio Network's key New Hampshire-based live shows via our studio cam at cam.lrn.fm. Plus, you'll still be able to listen to the Liberty Radio Network via the cam feed in high quality 24/7, even when there's no live show being produced in our Keene studio. But wait, there's more. Our chat room is built into the cam page so you can interact with other listeners online. Listen, watch, and chat, all free at cam.lrn.fm. That's cam.lrn.fm.
People of Earth, prepare yourselves.
Admit you're stoned.
I have no soul.
He cannot pick up a knife to cut a steak.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I might consider some toe sucking. How much pot are you smoking right now?
My ball handling isn't so great.
Inconceivable.
The 27th level of I don't know what you're talking about.
You can't handle the truth.
It's so hardcore, people won't even believe it.
It's a story about love, for Christ's sake.
Jesus Christ.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm not really sure what it means.
Come on.
When I think about him, I feel funny inside.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Do what you want, man. I got no problem with it. But I'm still going to talk about it.
What? Do you like that?
Now it's just way too big. That needs to be censored. Excellent.
For more of this insanity, visit blacksheeprising.org. You have been warned. It's a freaking podcast. Duh.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
Welcome back to Peace News. We are live this Sunday, August 10th, 2014. It's 5:47 here in Keene in the Shire on the East Coast. You can call in 443-424-8347 is our call-in line. You can also Skype into the show by sending a contact request to PeaceNewsNow and then dialing in, like Dalek here. Hey, Dalek. Hey, Dalek, can you hear us? You're on Peace News Now. What's on your mind? Okay, not hearing anything from Dalek, so we'll have to reconnect somehow. Feel free to dial back in, but until then, we'll continue with the story from Dayton Daily News, where the Dayton, Ohio cop block made the local newspaper for carrying signs. Angela Williams, 37, of Fairborn, also died from an apparent medical emergency while running from the incident inside the Walmart store with her 9-year-old daughter. The protesters, who called themselves the Dayton, Ohio Cop Block, carried signs outside the Pentagon Boulevard store. Let's see if we can connect with Dalek over here in the background. One read, "Toy guns don't kill people, cops kill people." And another stated, "Peace, not cops." On the line, we have Dalek.
Okay.
You here with us?
Okay.
Go ahead, Dalek.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead with your thoughts. Not hearing anything. Going to continue. One man apparently was open carrying a sidearm in a holster. Okay. I'm going to accept every call I get. Hey, Dalek, you are on Peace News Now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet connection.
Okay, well, can you hear us?
Hopefully this will be a little bit better.
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm calling with another thing.
Okay, going to disconnect from that call because it sounds like he's not hearing us. So we're just going to get that figured out in between now and the next segment, and hold your thoughts. One of the protesters was carrying a sidearm in a holster and was also carrying a toy gun in an effort to show the difference between real guns and fake guns. None of the protesters were willing to be interviewed or provide their names. Well, damn it, guys! Darn it! Oh, I'm so mad at that. Why not? Why not? Oh, I'm afraid of what people will think where I work. I'm afraid of what people will think if I take a stand on something, if I have an opinion. Man, I hate to criticize the people who are doing the right thing. Good for you for being out there, but then, damn it, be accountable. Why not? What are you afraid of? The newspaper's trying to report on you, trying to give you press. You're not gonna. None of the protesters were willing to be interviewed or provide their names. Well, for goodness sake, guys, if you're Dayton, Ohio cop block, don't you have a website where you publish stuff? Aren't you reporters? I hate to be screaming at my friends here, because you guys I would consider friends. We're working on the same project here, the Freedom Project. Go be interviewed. Man, I don't know. I'm so frustrated at that. Because I see that happening a lot in cop block. Is because cop block is decentralized, people are like, well, I'm going to film the police, and that's it. Like, you know, I don't have any kind of consistent stance on recording or openness or accountability, transparency. I'm able to be private and unaccountable, but I want to hold the police to be accountable? No way, man. You got to lead by example. It's not a good way. If you don't want the police to act that way, you shouldn't act that way. The coroner's office ruled Crawford's death a homicide. Investigators will have to determine whether the officer-involved shooting was justified or not. Well, investigators, well, that's just generic enough to work. You know what that means. Other officers. So people in the murderer's department are going to investigate their friend, say, oh, was that a legitimate murder or not? And I wonder what they're going to find. Judging from history, these men will get a paid vacation and then be right back on the force. Maybe some desk duty, but then they'll be back. Okay, so that was a story of turning a bad situation into an opportunity to talk about police and a voluntary society. Even better than that is what's happening in New Hampshire. So that was the Dayton, Ohio cop block, and I didn't mean to frame it this way, it just sort of happened. But, you know, that was the Dayton, Ohio cop block activists. Now we got, boom, some serious New Hampshire liberty activists. This story from nhjournal.com. Headline, New New Hampshire Hybrid PAC aims to transform GOP into Party of Liberty that embraces millennials. The GOP, just right off the bat, seems to me to be like a dying political party. Nobody's interested in them. It's a bunch of stuffy old white guys trying hard to get a Mexican, Spanish sort of population demographic voting for them by feigning interest, but then really ruining that sort of angle by all the tough border talk, anti-immigration stuff. So the Republicans are dying. There's no more people becoming Republicans, except maybe in New Hampshire. A new hybrid PAC, this reading from the article posted by John DiStasso. A new hybrid PAC announced today by New Hampshire Liberty Movement conservatives Aaron Day and Matt Phillips intends to focus initially on supporting Andrew Hemingway for governor and like-minded candidates for the state senate, but has its eyes on a bigger prize. The Stark 360 PAC also intends to be a player in the 2016 first-in-the-nation presidential primary campaign and transform the Republican Party into a party of liberty that embraces the millennial generation. The PAC is taking unlimited contributions for its independent expenditure activities, and according to Day and Phillips, in addition to accepting cash, Stark 360 will also accept contributions in Bitcoin, a new decentralized digital form of currency free of external government interference. As for its goal, here is how Day put it in his news release. Crushing debt, unfunded entitlements, the government takeover of healthcare, overregulation, the decaying of our public schools, and massive government intrusion into our private lives are a direct assault on our liberty and individual rights. What if we could prove that liberty works? What if we could transform the Republican Party into a party of liberty that embraces the millennial generation? What if we could break the cycle of failed Republican candidates who support the expansion of the welfare state and position the country for a Goldwater Reagan Republican in 2016? The PAC first wants to elect the first pro-liberty millennial governor, Andrew Hemingway, and win a pro-liberty majority for the Republicans in our 424-person state legislature. Day is chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus of New Hampshire, which has endorsed 12 GOP candidates for the state Senate, including 5 who are taking on sitting GOP senators in primaries. This is a big deal in New Hampshire. You would never hear me, an anarchist, talking about blah blah state elections. Boring, snooze fest. Seriously, I even hesitate to bring up this article. But it's important in New Hampshire, and here's why. Because of what was just mentioned there. The 424-person state legislature. First of all, that's huge. Compare it with your state legislature, guarantee it's bigger. Then, they're mostly small-town folks. The compensation for a role as a representative, $100. $100 is your compensation for being a representative. So these are not the power-hungry, money-hungry, greedy fat cats who write regulations to protect their friends and benefit cronies. This is average folks. And if people are moving to New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project and are failing to get elected where they live, consider moving here. Not only will your campaign have a better impact, you also have a better chance at winning. Spread liberty here in all possible ways, political and outside the system. This is Peace News Now.
If you are struggling to pay or haven't been making your student loan payments, listen carefully to this urgent alert. Have you been out of school for 10 or more years and you're still making your student loan payments? Are your student loans past due or even in default? Can't go back to school because of an old student loan problem? Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. One quick 10-minute call could help you solve your student loan problems. So call right now. Not available in all states. Payments may vary based on income. 800-215-6813. 800-215-6813, 800-215-6813, 800-215-6813.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online.
Hey, Dalek?
Online through shop.lrn.fm.
Hey, Dalek?
3. Hurry up. Hopefully it doesn't pass off around like 30 seconds.
What you need at the same great prices and
Real good. I don't know.
Your online shopping at shop.lrn.fm. Americans are reeling from Obamacare, higher prices, and an epidemic of policy lapses. AsiaRunLikeHellGuide.com has your...
Thank you. So, Dalek, can you hear me now?
Not really. I can hear like the little fuzz, but not really much of it. Just like a little bit of like the fuzz, but not very much. Here, I don't know what's... It's actually on my PS Vita, which usually works usually for this, but I don't know. Here, I can check the settings real quick. Here, I'll end it and then I'll get the audio input and output real quick.
The war in Libya, saying his decision to attack Libya and impose regime change was the right thing, but that the U.S. should have had a long follow-up mission to prop up the new government there. It is that regret that is informing his new Iraq war and his talk of a military goal of preventing the creation of an Islamic caliphate in Iraq and Syria is the only way of a protracted nation-building mission that is rapidly forming around what
Hello,
presented
welcome to
Thursday.
Skype call testing service. After the beep, please record a message. Afterwards, your message will be played back to you.
Hey, this is a Skype test call to see if the problem is happening on my end or on the caller's end.
If you are able to hear your own voice, then you have configured Skype correctly. If you hear this message, but not your own voice, then something is wrong with your audio recording settings. Please check your microphone and microphone settings or visit skype.com for more help. Hello, welcome to Skype call testing service. After the beep, please record a message. Afterwards, your message will be played back to you.
Hello, this is a test to see if the call problem is happening on my end or on the caller's end.
Disaster in Donbass, referring to the area of eastern Ukraine where combat is being waged. He warned that Donetsk faced a lack of food, water, and electricity, but said the rebels were ready to defend the city of around 1 million people. He added, in the event of a storm of the city, the number of victims will increase by magnitude. We have no humanitarian corridors. There is no supply of medicines. Food supplies are nearing their end. Ukrainian officials have said they are ready to agree to a ceasefire, but only on the condition that the rebels surrender all their arms.
FPP Radio News is brought to you by Coinbase. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. I trust Coinbase. You should too. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. That's coinbase.fppradio.com. Ballot Access News reports, for the first time since
Check, check. Hey, can you hear me, ANCAP? Uh-oh. Nope, not hearing you. It's probably still a problem on my end. I apologize about that.
Taught the important values of respecting runway etiquette, maintaining a glistening six-pack, and walking a catwalk with verve and flair.
The number of strong-jawed male supermodels in children's lives has declined to record lows, leaving the majority of our youth unaware of how to get comfortable
Can you hear me
with
now?
the camera during an underwear shoot,
yes, I can.
or even perform something
All
as
right.
simple as a
Hooray.
sexy
You can
We
hear
got
me?
it.
And you
Yes, I can.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Communities were especially affected by the
How am I
lack of
sounding?
Adonis-like male figures,
We're
and added
coming
the
back
children in lower
in
class homes
30
were over
seconds.
80%
Okay.
less likely to grow into the type of high cheekboned, studly he-men that succeeded.
Now,
in
I should not be
Quite
hearing
frankly, these children are
one of
just
these
not getting the
things.
necessary influence of a dynamic male supermodel who can both make puppy dog eyes at the camera and also radiate that sort of raw, unabashed machismo that forces fashionistas to look up and take notice.
This is the Onion News
Okay.
Network.
This is good.
Welcome back to Peace News Now. We are live this Sunday, August 10th, 2014, and on the line, you can call in 443-424-8347 or dial in on Skype, Peace News Now, all one word, just as Dalek has done. And Dalek, I think we've gotten all of our technical difficulties worked out, so we can hear each other now. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Well, thank you, Derek. Aside from the technical difficulties, this is awesome, great show. I wanted to say that about like the Iraq thing, it's just really, really amazingly ridiculous, and I feel like I feel so much bad crap that they actually have to go in and now go to war, and now people will be dying.
Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, I feel kind of bad that like we're gonna go back to World War III. No, we're going back to war. More people are gonna die. Congratulations. And one of the most
story though, really, right? I mean, there have always been some group of soldiers at war somewhere in the world. I feel like I have very little responsibility or role in this. Do you feel like you have responsibility for this war?
Not at all.
Why do you worry about it? Why do you concern yourself with this war and not the millions of other wars around the world?
Well, at least first of all, it's like more of a current event right now. Just like when what's going on. And one thing that I really kind of pay attention to is that the people that were fighting around Iraq right now were the same people that were the Syrian rebels.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the ISIS group basically were helping out the Syrian rebels.
And when you say we, you mean the Pentagon, right?
Pentagon, the government, those bureaucratic buttholes.
But not you and me.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to be clear on that. Go ahead.
Okay. While going on that, they were actually a part of the Syrian rebels, and actually one of the most funniest part is that John McCain was with them in a picture. So.
Oh yeah, I remember that. So
yeah.
is the part that affects you the part where this is just a gross injustice, and injustice anywhere offends you?
Yeah, basically.
I can follow that. I agree with that. I mean, I see a lot of injustice all over the world, but the stuff that appears to be more local, the stuff that my friends and family would say, oh, well, you have to support the troops, right? Stuff like that. I would say, no way, man. They're creating hell out of this heaven. Okay, so is that all your thoughts you wanted to share? You oppose the wars in Iraq. It's sad that it's continuing, and Obama... He didn't close Guantanamo Bay. He didn't end the war in Iraq. He didn't do anything he promised to do in his 8 years.
Yep. But not only that, we're going back to war. Hooray!
Yeah, I wonder how this is going to frame the next election in 2016 if war will be one of the big topics. Since it was one of the big topics 8 years ago and nothing has changed. Or can the Empire even admit that it has no taste to end war?
Yep. I really don't know. Maybe it might be actually a big hot topic issue, but you know what? I think it's just really sad that, not only we funded the ISIS group with the Syrian rebels, now they were actually killing Christians around in Syria, and now they're killing Christians in Iraq, which is kind of funny.
It's pretty messed up.
Now they're paying attention to it instead of like around Syria with the Syrian rebels. Yeah, it's kind of offset, but that's just
different religions killing each other is one of the most ridiculous things to me, because it's like, my God is better than your God, my fairy tale is better than your fairy tale. I mean, these nonsense storybook religions that preach kill your neighbor and your brother if they disagree with you is absurd. That's an ideology I think it's time humanity moved beyond.
It's absolutely insane, and I totally agree with you, Derek. Thank you for letting me be on the show. I really do appreciate your work and trying to bring peace, love, and liberty around the world.
Thanks, man, and thanks for calling in. Dial in anytime. If you want to sound as good as Dalek here, you can dial in on Skype. Our line is PeaceNewsNow. It is now open for you. So before Dalek called in, we were talking about this New Hampshire PAC that is changing the face of republicanism, at least in New Hampshire. Republicans have a bad name. Conservative is a four-letter word in most circles. It's a pejorative in places like New York and California. But here in New Hampshire, something different is happening with the Republican Party. And to me, as an anarchist, the way I view this is not about Republicans at all. No, this is about the appearance of legitimacy working within the system to bring radical change. Because what these pro-liberty candidates believe, well, I can only speculate. But I would speculate that they believe in total human freedom. Meaning, humans are not intended to have masters or owners, that each individual is a sovereign unto himself, a country of his own, the master of his destiny, and that the government has no role in a free man's life. So I speculate that these so-called Republicans are running as Republicans for the guise of legitimacy. There are other political people in New Hampshire who have attempted to found their own party. The Peace and Liberty Party, I think, is one. New Hampshire Peace and Liberty Party is one that Gerald W. Perry kicks around. But no one takes that seriously. And why should they? First of all, the anarchists don't take the voting seriously. And then the statists don't take the third party seriously. So it's a lose-lose. Assessing this situation as a strategist, what would you do? You'd put the anarchists, you'd put them right in there with the R's and the D's. Why should they have their own party? And what party is least favorable these days? Democrats. They've been in power for 8 years, right? They're in power with Obama, the wars of aggression, prohibition. It looks to me, reading this NHJournal.com article, that the time is ripe for pro-liberty movers, and pro-liberty anyone, really, if you live in the area of New Hampshire for a long time or whether you just moved here. If you're interested in advancing liberty in the political sphere, one wise way to do it would be to join up with this PAC. This is a very nice idea. Continuing from NHJournal.com, the article writes, quoting former Governor John H. Sununu, that Iowa picks corn, New Hampshire picks presidents. Day said that in the recent primaries, the state actually picked losing presidential candidates. A small elite group of the New Hampshire Republican establishment, corrupted by D.C. interest groups, has disenfranchised New Hampshire voters, alienated the youth vote, and manipulated party rules for personal advantage. In particular, the treatment of Ron Paul in New Hampshire and the egregious manipulation of the rules aimed at harming Ron Paul delegates in the 2012 presidential race needs to end now. Still taking your calls and thoughts. Dial in. This is Peace News Now.
Hi, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. The internet has lowered the cost barrier for a worldwide radio show to a price approaching zero. Yet there is one arena where you still need thousands of dollars to approach the audio quality of the corporate media. Doing a live spoken show with more than one host in different geographic locations. Our program, Fiend Phone, will solve that problem, and it will be given away free. Go to fiendphone.com to see what you can do to help. That's FEENPHONE.com.
Free Press Publications is an independent alternative media and publishing company founded in June 2009 with the mission of ensuring a free press for the freedom movement and is committed to spreading the message of peace, freedom, love, and liberty. FPP also gives new authors an avenue for publishing freedom-oriented material. FPP brings you daily news and commentary at fpp.cc, as well as weekly news in the FPP Freedom Minute and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio at fppradio.com. The monthly newspaper FPP News at news.fpp.cc and books at shop.fpp.cc. Find FPP online at fpp.cc. That's fpp.cc, as in creative.
Did you know you can get news updates about what's happening with the Liberty Radio Network delivered in the way you prefer? You can sign up for our email updates at updates.lrn.fm. Plus, you can stay in the loop by joining our Facebook profile at facebook.lrn.fm or follow us at Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm. It's all free, so sign up now at updates.lrn.fm for news updates delivered to your email box, facebook.lrn.fm to follow our Facebook page, and twitter.lrn.fm to receive our tweets.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Imagine someone in your community getting in their car, turning on the radio, and hearing the Liberty Radio Network. You can make that vision a reality with your own micro radio station. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how you can put our programs on the air in your area. You can have LRN.FM running around the clock, and you can even add in your own local shows. Building a radio station is simple, but programming isn't. That's where LRN.FM comes in. Learn more at broadcast.lrn.fm. That's broadcast.lrn.fm.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. Find out about giving to our Google AdWords campaign at amp.freetalklive.com. That's amp.freetalklive.com.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
Yeah. Talking about New Hampshire hybrid PAC aiming to transform the GOP blah blah political talk from an anarchist, you say. I agree. However, this is happening in New Hampshire, which makes everything different. Because New Hampshire has representatives, small town folks that are actually accountable to the people. They don't get paid more than $100 a year, which means it's a little more difficult to incentivize the power hungry to go after these positions. Tends to be people who like liberty, like freedom, want to represent their friends and neighbors honorably. So just finishing up the article here, he says that while the PAC founders see Hemingway leading the charge in New Hampshire, they will also focus on legislative races, particularly in certain state Senate primary contests, and even attempt to secure more members of the Republican State Committee. Okay, so they're going after the Republicans. That's the point. This hybrid PAC, what's it calling itself? Stark 360 PAC. They can accept unlimited funds. That's pretty cool, too. You know, there are some real advantages to using the system that the government people set up for themselves, right? They set up these mechanisms where they say, oh, and here's this little loophole where you can send me, Mr. Politician, endless amounts of money. Well, same loophole for them works for you, right? So why not set up your own? Anyway, just a cool thought. Something cool that these people have done. Okay, here I have a video. I might be able to play a clip from this girl's speech. A Dartmouth student who, you know, this is another New Hampshire story. Unfortunately, Dartmouth is stupid and is not allowing students to conceal carry a firearm for self-defense. And this girl, who's been stalked for years, carries a firearm to defend herself. Totally legitimate. Oh, but the government school, which, of course, it's a private school, but don't they get any taxpayer money? Dartmouth? We'll find out. They're not allowing her to carry the gun. Here's the story from rare.us. On Tuesday, Taylor Woolrich spoke before a crowd of students at Students for Concealed Carry in Washington, D.C., about how she isn't allowed to protect herself from her stalker. For most of her adult life, Taylor, a junior at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, has been followed and stalked by a man who met her when she was a high schooler in San Diego. Fearing for her safety, Taylor begged administrators at her school to allow her to conceal carry a weapon on campus. The school, citing safety of other students, declined. There's no option. There's no one to go to. They don't want to hear my case, Taylor told Fox News. 67-year-old Richard Bennett has been stalking Taylor for the last 4 years after meeting her at a coffee shop where she worked when she was just 16. After a series of violent social media messages, visits to her house, and following her around, Bennett was arrested after showing up at Taylor's home just hours after she returned home from her freshman year of college. After police arrived, they arrested Bennett and made a gruesome discovery in his car. They found what they like to call a rape kit in the back of his car. It consisted of a sweatshirt, firewood, maps of the area, duct tape, a rope tied into a slip noose, hunting knives, and various other items. Instead of granting her a provision to carry a concealed weapon, campus security told Taylor to give them a call to arrange for an escort if she ever feels she's in danger walking home at night. Taylor has tried this route before and has been met with abrasive dispatchers who require she justify why she needs a security guard to assist her. Stalkers just don't show up after dark. Unless they have an armed guard in front of my dorm room, I'm not sure how safe I will be. I don't think there's much an unarmed guard can do, Taylor said, noting that if Bennett is able to post bond or is one day released, she'll have no choice but to drop out of school. Currently, Bennett is sitting in a California prison awaiting his next court date to decide his fate. Quote, Dartmouth thinks banning weapons will keep students safe, but a gun ban isn't going to stop him from attacking. At Dartmouth, if a restraining order and law enforcement can't guarantee my safety, then I'm asking for the right to do so. This is a girl who wants to take personal responsibility for her safety. And she's being told, whoa, hey, we have security for that. Why don't you just call them up and ask for a ride? You don't need to be carrying a gun. Guns are scary. This is what can be expected of the intelligentsia, right? Dartmouth College, if you're not familiar, let me double check this. Dartmouth College, if I'm not mistaken, is an Ivy League located in Hanover, New Hampshire. It is, I've just confirmed, it is a Ivy League school, and wow, how creepy is this? Their motto, Vox Clementis in Deserto, a voice crying out in the wilderness. Does that not tell the story of this Dartmouth student, or what? I mean, here she is, a voice crying out in the wilderness, and that's all she would be if she were unarmed, right? Unable to defend herself, crying out. New Hampshire is mostly woods. It would be easy for this man to just drag her away. She'd never be found again. This is one of the reasons it's so important for people to defend themselves, and one of the reasons why so many people do carry in New Hampshire. Changing gears a bit, I want to turn my attention for the remainder of this show to war and the reporting done on war. How has it changed over the last 50, 100, maybe just the last 5 years? Well, at theatlantic.com, Tori Rose DeGette writes, the war photo no one would publish. When Kenneth Dirac photographed an Iraqi man burned alive, he thought it would change the way Americans saw the Gulf War. But the media wouldn't run the picture. Is this still happening today? You bet it is. In the age of information, you are being censored from the real news, from the photographs of the victims. And isn't that what largely contributed to the end of Vietnam? This is Peace News Now.
Are you looking for an excuse to come check out New Hampshire this fall? You're invited to Keenvention. Keenvention is your chance to meet dozens of key liberty activists from across the Shire. You can explore the beautiful little city of Keene, discuss various forms of activism with seasoned veterans, do some Robin Hooding, and learn about making the move. Keenvention received rave reviews last year. If you missed it, visit keenvention.info for full video coverage of every speaker and panel. This year, Rich Paul is our first announced keynote speaker, and more are being announced now at keenvention.info. Join old and new friends and neighbors in Keene for Keenvention this October 31st through November 2nd. You can pre-order your tickets now for just $60 at keenvention.info, or you can pay with Bitcoin. Visit keenvention.info for more information and to lock in your tickets at the pre-order $60 price for the whole weekend. Visit keenvention.info for more, or look for our page and event on Facebook. That's keenvention.info. On LRN.FM, we talk a lot about alternative currencies. Did you know that now you can buy gold, silver, and other precious metals with bitcoins? LRN.FM has partnered with Amaji Metals to bring you great prices on beautiful .999 fine silver, as well as gold, platinum, and other metals. Check out their selection and pay with bitcoins or Federal Reserve notes at metal.lrn.fm. That's metal.lrn.fm.
Publicists everywhere agreed this week that the nation's celebrities are in dire need of more fame, stressing that all 6 billion of the world's populace should know every U.S. celebrity by name and face by now. Publicists are calling for an emergency influx of buzz, heat, press, and word of mouth to be administered to the nation's celebrities immediately in order to prevent crucial fame levels from becoming dangerously low. Novelist Edward Milligan told reporters this week that in his new book, By the Water's Edge, he has fleshed out in meticulous detail his own huge and stunningly shitty world. Using in-depth research and the power of his own imagination, Milligan was able to conjure out of thin air every hackneyed character, trite street name, and horseshit backstory in the fictional town of Connors Cove. The complete hack proudly said he has created a universe that readers will feel they can actually reach out and touch. Sources say the prolific writer has not yet been punched repeatedly in the face. In other news, McDonald's opens a new senior citizen play place.
This is the Onion News Network.
The 3 most important things you can do for LRN.FM are: 1. Let your friends know you're listening to LRN.FM on your social networking profile. 2. Buy the things you buy online through shop.lrn.fm. 3. Give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm. It's my firm belief that the AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented groups. Support all your favorite organizations, but make sure you give $5 a month to the AMP program at amp.lrn.fm.
What if the key to achieving liberty in your lifetime was to move together with others who think like you? Liberty activists are joining the Free State Project, which is over 70% of the way to its goal of 20,000 participants. And they're already making the move to New Hampshire. The successes are piling up and are proving the Free State Project is a real movement and no longer just a great idea. When you're planning your move, consider Keene. Keene is famous for its civil disobedience and non-cooperation, and there's plenty of political opportunity as well. From demonstrations and vigils to outreach and volunteering, there's a lot going on in Keene. Keene is the liberty media capital of the world, with television, talk radio, and more, all originating here. Though it's more than just activism, with regular social events each week. See what's happening at freekeene.com and get connected with video, audio, free books, a forum, and activist tools you can download and use in your area at freekeene.com. That's freekeene.com.
Listen to LRN.FM on any phone, anytime. 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Welcome back. This is Peace News. I'm your host, Derek J. Hey, I didn't mention this, but you can check out this show and everything I do at derekj.me. It's the website where I put all of my content, from PeaceNewsNow to Bitcoin Talk Show to Six Sad World. Hey, you didn't know I do Six Sad World? It's true. And I'm on Free Talk Live and hosting Freedom Fiends on Sunday nights. I'll be hosting tonight. So if you want to listen to Freedom Fiends live, you can, of course, always do it at lrn.fm. But I urge you to join me over at derekj.me. Check out all the content I provide there for you. And if you like the content, go over there to the sponsor button and send me some Bitcoin. That will help me continue to do activism on a daily basis. You know, I went down to the local jail today, took some video, waved to the prisoners, held signs, got people who were driving by to honk their horns in support of the message, no victim, no crime. Free Rich Paul. That's not an activity that pays. It's a hobby. I recognize that. My support for peaceful people behind bars is a hobby, not a job. But if you like that there's someone here in Keene focusing on these things, go over there and sponsor my work. derekj.me/sponsor. Got one more plug. Taking the Keene police to court. Yeah, that's right. They denied my concealed carry license. And so I have to appeal that decision, take them to court. I'm raising funds for a lawyer. I have already retained the lawyer. I believe he's the best in the business, Evan Knappen. He's going to represent me on this appeal, and that should be happening within the next 2 weeks. So I will report back to you on how that goes. Thanks to all of you who have donated, raised over $1,000 already, and of course we accept Bitcoin. Go over there to well, I don't know what an easy link to the Bitcoin address is, since GoFundMe wiped our Bitcoin link from the page, but you can send Bitcoin to me over at derekj.me/sponsor. That's, I guess, the best way to participate in the fundraiser if you want to send Bitcoin. So take the Keene police to court. Yeah, I'm totally going to win. I don't want to be totally, I mean, I'm being pretty cocky about this because it's a shall issue state. And I haven't done anything that would disqualify me from valid ownership of a concealed carry license. So I'm going to win. It's almost an assured victory. If you want to take partial responsibility for the next victory against the Keene police, donate today. Thanks for your support. Now let's return to the story of the war photo that no one would publish. This is important because it's important to remember how much censorship still exists in the age of information, that we're not seeing the victims, we're not seeing what's happening around the world, these wars for which, quote-unquote, we are somehow personally responsible. Reading from theatlantic.com. The Iraqi soldier died attempting to pull himself up over the dashboard of his truck. The flames engulfed his vehicle and incinerated his body, turning him to a dusty ash and blackened bone. In a photograph taken soon afterward, the soldier's hand reaches out of the shattered windshield, which frames his face and chest. The colors and textures of his hands and shoulders look like those of the scorched and rusted metal around him. Fire has destroyed most of his features, leaving behind a skeletal face, fixed in a final rictus. He stares without eyes. On February 28, 1991, Kenneth Durack stood in front of the charred man, parked amid the carbonized bodies of his fellow soldiers, and photographed him. At one point, before he died this dramatic mid-retreat death, the soldier had had a name. He'd fought in Saddam Hussein's army and had a rank and an assignment and a unit. He might have been devoted to the dictator who sent to occupy Kuwait and fight the Americans. Or he might have been an unlucky young man with no prospects, recruited off the streets of Baghdad. Jarek took the picture just before a ceasefire officially ended Operation Desert Storm, the U.S.-led military action that drove Saddam Hussein and his troops out of Kuwait, which they had annexed and occupied the previous August. The image and its anonymous subject might have come to symbolize the Gulf War. Instead, it went unpublished in the United States, not because of military obstruction, but because of editorial choices. It's hard to calculate the consequences of a photograph's absence, but sanitized images of warfare. The Atlantic's Connor Froderoff argues, make it easier to accept bloodless language, such as the 1991 references to surgical strikes, or modern-day terminology like kinetic warfare. The Vietnam War, in contrast, was notable for its catalog of chilling and iconic war photography. Some images, like Ron Herbel's picture of My Lai Massacre, were initially kept from the public But other violent images, Nick Ut's scene of children napalm victims and Eddie Adams' photo of a Viet Cong man's execution, won Pulitzer Prizes and had a tremendous impact on the outcome of the war. Not every gruesome photo reveals an important truth about conflict and combat. Last month, the New York Times decided, for valid ethical reasons, to remove images of dead passengers from an online story about Flight MH17 in Ukraine and replace them with photos of mechanical wreckage. Sometimes, though, omitting an image means shielding the public from the messy, imprecise consequences of war, making the coverage incomplete and even deceptive. In the case of the charred Iraqi soldier, the hypnotizing and awful photograph ran against the popular myth of the Gulf War as a video game war, a conflict made humane through precision bombing and night vision equipment. By deciding not to publish it, Time magazine and the Associated Press denied the public the opportunity to confront this unknown enemy and consider his excruciating final moments. The image was not entirely lost. The Observer in the United Kingdom and Libération in France both published it after the American media refused. Many months later, the photo also appeared in American Photo, where it stoked some controversy but came too late to have a significant impact. All of this surprised the photographer, who had assumed the media would be only too happy to challenge the popular narrative of a clean, uncomplicated war. When you have an image that disproves that myth, he says today, then you think it's going to be widely published. Let me say up front that I don't like the press, one Air Force officer declared, starting a January 1991 press briefing on a blunt note. The military's bitterness toward the media was in no small part a legacy of the Vietnam coverage decades before. And here is that photo for those of you watching along at Peace News Now. See it for yourself at derekj.me. Still time for your thoughts if you make them quickly. This is Peace News Now.
When I found the Free State Project, I knew it was the key to achieving liberty in my lifetime. It's awesome to be surrounded by like-minded, freedom-loving activists who've moved here to New Hampshire. From politics to civil disobedience, we have it all. Where I came from, it felt that no matter what I did, liberty was dying. Perhaps you feel the same way? Call 888-377-2515 now to learn more about the Free State Project. That's 888-377-2515 or visit freestateproject.org.
Did you agree? Did you totally agree? I'll bet that you did. But did you read the agreement? There are 7 billion people on Earth, and there are over 6 billion active cell phone accounts right now. And every one of them came with an agreement. Billions have already agreed to allow entities that they do not know to use and abuse every feature of their mobile devices, your computer activities, an archive, your phone track, and even your face is scanned. The current power structure grows more fearful every day of your desire for an...
Hey, this is Derek J. Who's this? Oh, darn. Here, I think I've got my connection somehow set up wrong. Just hang tight for just a moment.
It'll be categorized as...
Okay, can you hear me?
FreedomsPhoenix.com.
I can hear you very well. Did you hear what I said?
I did not hear what you said, no.
2014.
You said I was your biggest fanatic when you asked who said.
Then we did it.
Oh, that's sweet of you. Oh, thank you.
Listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams,
so
free
something is a
satellite
little
channel,
different
or
about my
radio
setup today. I'm not sure what it is,
listen to LRN
but
on
I can't mute my ads when I'm listening to
493
you. Oh, I know what it is.
It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're
I
familiar with your
unplugged
phone's
my
calling
computer
flow.
last night to
Liberty
do
Radio Network listen
karaoke,
lines are locked into our
and
stream
I
24 hours
replugged
a day.
everything in
Call
the wrong way. So, unfortunately, I
Here's
won't
a
be
no
able
bar joke. There's no, I'm sorry, no bother. That's all good to work connected. I was going to say a no
This
bar
Your
joke I
Family
made
Today
up years
tip is
ago.
brought to you by
Karaoke's
Nestle
proof
Pure
Satan
Life Water,
exists.
helping you drink better and live
Well, I
better
like
by providing
I like to do
zero-calorie
karaoke. Our
alternative
theme
to
was
sugary
peace and
drinks.
freedom songs,
Visit
but
us
I
at
apologize that I can't mute
nestle-purelife.us.
these ads right now
When
because
kids
I
are
hooked
playing,
everything
they
in
often
wrong.
don't want to
So
stop to keep
our
hydrated.
wires are
You're
crossed.
coming in through. I don't know. I presume I'm
encourage
coming
them to
through
take
now as
frequent
well.
breaks.
Yeah, you're
And
coming
hopefully
through.
to your audience.
For a quick
Yeah,
fix.
you're coming through,
For
and
more
we'll
tips
go
like
out to
these,
the audience.
visit
It's
us at
just kind of annoying when I can't mute the ads.
parenthood.com/yourfamily-today.
Right on. And my first question to you is, how do you reconcile your desire or right to bear arms, unconcealed or concealed,
furniture, kitchen.
with your profession of faith of peaceful resistance?
Okay, that's a good question. Let's get into that when we start. Any other thoughts? And by the way, I was able to mute those ads. You no longer hear them,
cool,
right?
Okay, that right now I don't need to ask you to.
Yeah, I won't answer. I won't answer that
I don't
right
have
away.
anything to say. Right. Well, because it's in reference to. I don't support wars of aggression either, and I do support your right to aggress upon an aggressor of yours with a full metal jacket if need be. But the only thing Dalek said that was even any reality-based, because we're not an empire, and we left Iraq in 2011, just like, unfortunately, we left Iraq in 1991. We should have stayed, and the world would be a hell of a lot better place. And there are a lot of, speaking of pictures of people, there you could put up literally millions of photos of people's lives that were ruined by that evil dictator who's now resting with Satan as we speak.
Well, I invite you to discuss that as much as you like. It sounds like you have a lot of knowledge on that topic. I would just ask that you use the term the government or the Pentagon rather than we, so that you
I'm not talking about you.
Right. I understand. It's just a nitpicky thing. We're coming right back.
Right.
Welcome back. This is the final segment of the show, and we have James on the line. James in Arizona has a question. How do I reconcile some of my seemingly contradictory beliefs? Not sure if we're going to be able to finish up the story over at theatlantic.com. All of our show notes are, however, available online at PeaceNewsNow.com and at derekj.me. So, James in Arizona, go ahead with your thoughts.
Shall I repeat the question, and thank you for taking me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, please repeat the question for us.
Well, how do you reconcile your desire or right to bear arms, unconcealed or concealed, with your profession of faith and peaceful resistance?
I believe that the porcupine is a peaceful representation of like, that would be my spirit animal, my roundabout way of answering your question. So let me try and narrow that down. Pardon?
The point is, don't poke them.
Yeah, the point is, like, I want to be the porcupine in that I want to be peaceful and play with other porcupines and other animals, but I also want to be not an easy target. Like,
okay, right on. Speaking of animals, then, and this is why it inspired me to ask you about that, because Dalek was right about ISIS is not a recent phenomenon, and they got their training in a awful place called Syria. Now that the United States of America no longer has an empire in Iraq, or a military, that is, they moved into northern Iraq, and now they're moving to the west, and they have control of a huge oil field, a huge dam, and they're not effing around. They do believe in fairy tales that Muhammad commanded them to kill people like you and me that don't share the religion.
Yeah.
The fairy tales, I don't know what fairy tales you're speaking of that people that oppose them, for instance, I don't know what fairy tales you Christians believe in, that a Christian like me believes that if you love God, you hate evil, and you put your ass on the line to oppose evil, if need be, and you haven't aggressed upon anybody if you do such a thing as shoot at an ISIS soldier with your gun or a United States military provided bazooka or whatever you have, you're not committing aggression or a violation of the non-aggression principles. You're doing the right thing on behalf of everybody, not just yourself. So again, I respect your right to bear arms, but I sincerely and unequivocally oppose your suggestion that the United States of America is an empire and that we went over to Iraq for any other reason than to get rid of a mass murderer who used to be the richest person in the world, but he's dead now, thank God. And it's so unfortunate we left in 2004, let alone in 1991 when that awful picture was taken. You could take a lot of awful pictures of a lot of awful things that he and Saddam's former willing henchmen did to people, and did just those things to people. And I'm not fretting about it anymore because the guy's dead, but the people that supported him, a lot of them are still alive, and they want you dead too. They're going to kill anybody they can in the Middle East, and then they're going to expand as much as they want, as much as they get away with. That is their intent. They're going to expand as much as they can get away with until somebody sticks a gun in their head and terminates them. Because the fairy tales they believe in, you can call them that. I'll agree with you. But again, I don't believe in any fairy tales tell me to murder innocent people.
Right.
So
well, I'm looking at this map of Iraq right now, and we've got Turkey and Syria up in the north, and I'm wondering, you know, if ISIS is heading north, aren't there people there who are like opposing them on the ground? I mean, what can military airstrikes from the U.S. do that would help the people who want to be free in northern Iraq and want to oppose ISIS?
Not very much. They do need boots. They had boots in the ground with American flags on those uniforms that the guys had strung up their boots on with. They don't have them any longer. Okay, that's it's.
Did they even help?
Our president called. Well, ISIS wasn't in Iraq. They had been kicked out of, and the insurgents had been kicked out of Iraq a long time ago. Of course, the United States military helped. Once they left, guess who moved back in? The rodents. The people that believe in Shahad. Literally to their death.
It doesn't seem like a good long-term solution then, even if the troops were to return.
They wouldn't be there right now, and the Yazidis in northern Iraq wouldn't be praying for their livelihood right now if we were still in Iraq, Derek.
Yeah.
Okay,
I wonder what can be done now. Like, if you got to be president, what would be your best course of action?
Well, I'll try to answer that another day, and thanks for asking. But I started to answer that one time on another show of yours about if I were president, I would ask anybody that's in the U.S. military right now, you want to volunteer to go back to Iraq? Because guess what, Derek J., there'll be thousands of people that would do that. Thousands. Sure. And that's what
that doesn't make it right.
Iraqis need right now.
And there are lots of people who would volunteer to do a lot of things. That doesn't make it right.
But that's only the beginning. I'd also go over to Western Europe and shame the Western Europeans that last time you guys were in an existential fight for your life. Tens of thousands, not to mention millions of Americans came over here and put their asses on the line for you. It's time you do the same thing over there for other people. And
it just seems not my business.
Okay.
Doesn't it come off that way to you? That it's like just not your business. This is all the way around the world. There are tons of problems at home. No, I don't believe in the Prime Directive.
I'll liken it to the Star Trek Prime Directive. No, I do not believe in the Prime Directive. To watch people, Derek J., people said the same thing during the 30s that stay out of the war in Europe. We don't belong there. And things we don't belong in Asia.
Right, but that's convenient for people like you because there's no nothing to compare it with. So you can say, well, look, we ended the war.
With the question you posed.
Yeah, but
I'm comparing with the question you posed.
There's no way to compare it to what would have happened if the U.S. had not entered the war in the World War I or World War II. You know, I speculate.
Totally different thing, but
I speculate that it could have been a better result for the world, for the situation of peace and freedom, if the U.S. had not
in World War I.
In either war.
In World War I.
In
okay, Derek J., this is a fact. This is a fact. I've heard this said before by another person on your show, on your network, the very first time I called in. Okay, it's a fact of the matter. If we hadn't gotten involved in World War II in any shape or otherwise, leave aside the fact that the Japanese evil empire declared war on the United States on December 7th, and Hitler declared war on the United States on December 11th.
The Japanese were already losing the war when they declared the attack on Pearl Harbor. Yeah, they were over.
Not.
They were finished.
They weren't losing. They were not losing. They didn't start losing until we got involved after they attacked Honolulu.
They were already finished. It was totally military.
No, they weren't. That's not true. That is not true in any degree or shape or regard. But as far as Hitler goes, that was 4 years later. And they were still losing the war. It took us 4 years.
Yeah, it was totally
unnecessary. Caused them to surrender. They were still losing the war. That it took us 4 years of actually fighting them before they did lose the war and declared they surrender. Okay, those two things don't make sense put together. But Hitler, if we hadn't gotten involved in Western Europe and supplied the Russians, Stalinist Russians, Hitler would have made it past Stalingrad, crossed the Volga, and he most certainly would have gone all the way to the Pacific.
You don't know that for sure.
Yes, I do. Because if we hadn't helped them and hadn't gotten involved in any shape or regard, they wouldn't have had the problem on their hand of the empire of the United States and all that it could provide our allies.
My point is that these people who have the problems like ISIS in their neighborhood are the ones who should be solving the problem, and people like me should stay out of it.
Okay, like the people in Poland should have solved their own problems in the 30s and then in the 40s. They should have solved their own problems.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, then Hitler would have, Auschwitz wouldn't have closed until he toasted the last of the Jews. But
I don't think that's
fact.
True. I don't think that would have happened.
You have an entirely contrarian notion of history than
yeah, because I like to
respectfully 99% of the people that I know.
It's because I like to use. I admit that my views on history are contrary to what most people believe, but I also exercise my imagination more than the general public, and I use my imagination to envision the world playing out in different ways. So, like, there's not just two scenarios of the U.S. enters the war and wins, or doesn't and loses, and Nazis take over. There are millions, billions of possibilities. And
we didn't have to respond like we did in response to our having been declared war upon.
It could have been good for the world. Unfortunately, we can't know. We're out of time. This is Peace News Now. We'll see you on Tuesday. In the meantime, check us out at PeaceNewsNow.com.
Peace be with you, Derek.
Peace be with you, James.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire
okay,
because I saw
rock
videos
on.
of people
so
challenging
I have
authority.
to.
Are you still there?
Yes, I am still here. I'm going to disconnect from this service. So now we are no longer broadcasting on LRN.FM, but we are still on YouTube at PeaceNewsNow.com/live and at DerekJ.me. So if you have any closing thoughts that you wanted to make. I know last time I cut you off a little too early.
No worries. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
In closing thoughts, the amount of supplies that we gave the Russians was their key to them being able to drive. Do you happen to know how many millions of people Germans sent into Russia or the Ukraine first, and they made it all the way to Stalingrad? And if the Russians hadn't had somebody else's help, that being ours, they would have won. They would have won in the USSR, and they would have kept on going east. And they would have had so much. They would have got to the Caucasus. They would have got the oil they wanted. They would have had all the fuel and blood money and agriculture and everything that they needed. They would have gone through China. They would have turned their backs on their allies, the Japanese. They would have routed them, and then he would have had an empire from one ocean to the other.
Well, that all may be true, James. I'm skeptical of the history that I learned, the official history that I learned in high school and college. I'm skeptical that that is 100% the truth. And so forgive me when I have a lot of doubts about the histories or the modern histories that I hear. about the current wars. So I just feel like I should stay out of it. This stuff is over my head. I'm not a military scholar. And I should stay out of it both in word and deed by keeping my finances from these wars. Because if I were really convinced that they were worth having, then I'd be putting my money where my mouth is. But I'm not. So.
I hear you. Well, I got to go, literally. It's so good.
All right. Well, thanks, James.
Thanks for taking on again.
Anytime. Cheers. Well, that does it for this episode of Peace News Now. I want to thank the contributors once again for making this show possible. It truly is you who have brought Peace News Now to the people for these past 2 years, and I want to thank you for making it possible. Peace News Now is sponsored entirely by viewers like you, so please open your Bitcoin wallets and make a donation today.